Is divorce too easy to obtain? That question alone can make a room go quiet. It can make people defensive. It can make people remember things they have tried hard to forget. Because divorce is not an abstract idea. It is not just a legal process or a statistic. It is a story. It is a wound. It is sometimes a rescue. And sometimes, it is a regret that echoes for decades. We live in a time where divorce papers can be filed online, signed digitally, processed quickly, and finalized without ever sitting across from the person you once promised forever to. A time where vows are made with beautiful words, but often with very little preparation for what those words will demand. A time where walking away has become easier than learning how to stay. So we have to ask the question honestly. Not with judgment, not with shame, but with courage. Is divorce too easy to obtain? Marriage was never meant to be easy. But it was meant to be meaningful. And somewhere along the way, we confused accessibility with wisdom, and convenience with growth. We need to start by saying something clearly, because pretending otherwise causes harm. There are marriages that should end. There are situations where divorce is not only justified, but necessary. Abuse, chronic infidelity, danger, situations where staying means losing yourself, your safety, or your sanity. Divorce can be an act of survival. It can be an act of courage. It can be an act of choosing life over destruction. But that truth does not cancel out another truth. That many divorces today happen not because there was no love left, but because there was no patience left. Not because the marriage was irreparable, but because it was inconvenient. Not because the vows were broken by betrayal, but because they were eroded by neglect. And that is where the discomfort lives. We have built a culture that celebrates starting over, but rarely honors sticking through. We praise independence, but often forget interdependence. We talk about self-love, but not about self-discipline. We talk about happiness, but not about responsibility. Marriage, at its core, is not a feeling. It is a decision that must be renewed long after feelings fluctuate. Love is not the absence of conflict. Love is what you choose to do when conflict arrives. But what happens when a culture teaches us that discomfort is a sign of failure rather than a signal for growth? What happens when every hard season is interpreted as a reason to leave rather than a reason to learn? Divorce becomes easy. Too easy. Not easy in an emotional sense. Not easy in the sense that it doesn't hurt. But easy in the sense that there are few barriers encouraging reflection, accountability, or repair before dissolution. Marriage used to be entered with an understanding that it would require endurance. Now it is often entered with an unspoken exit plan. A quiet mental note that says, if this stops working for me, I can leave. And when leaving is always an option, staying becomes less intentional. Think about this for a moment. We prepare more for careers than for marriages. We study for years to do a job that might change 5 times in a lifetime, but we often walk into marriage with little more than love and hope. Hope is beautiful, but hope without skills is fragile. Marriage requires emotional regulation, communication skills, conflict resolution, self-awareness, humility, the ability to apologize without keeping score, the ability to forgive without weaponizing the past. These things are not automatic. They are learned, they are practiced, they are refined through effort. But if we never teach people how to fight fair, how to listen deeply, how to sit with discomfort without running, then of course divorce will seem like the only option. When problems arise, because leaving is simpler than transforming, we live in a world trained for speed. Fast food, fast answers, fast validation, fast exits. But marriage operates on a different timeline. It is slow. It is layered. It unfolds over years, not months. It reveals parts of you that dating never touches. Marriage exposes selfishness. It exposes wounds. It exposes patterns you didn't even know you had. And exposure is uncomfortable. So when two people feel exposed, misunderstood, unappreciated, or unseen, and the culture around them whispers, "You deserve better, you shouldn't have to work this hard, maybe you chose wrong," the temptation to walk away becomes strong. Especially when divorce is readily available, legally simple, socially normalized, sometimes even encouraged without context. But ask yourself this quietly. If marriage can be ended with relative ease, how seriously do we take the promise to build something lasting? A vow is not meaningful because it is spoken. It is meaningful because it is costly to break. And this is where the conversation becomes complex. Because we do not want to trap people in harmful situations. But we also do not want to trivialize commitment. There was a time when divorce was nearly impossible, and that caused immense suffering. People were stuck in destructive relationships with no support and no escape. That was wrong. But the pendulum has swung far in the opposite direction. Now we risk creating a world where commitment is optional, perseverance is undervalued, and marriages are treated like subscriptions that can be cancelled when satisfaction drops. And that shift has consequences. Children grow up watching relationships dissolve at the first sign of strain. They internalize instability as normal. They learn that love is conditional upon comfort. Communities weaken. Trust erodes. People become guarded, entering relationships with one foot out the door. Because when divorce is easy to obtain, marriage becomes harder to trust. People stop believing in forever. They start believing in temporary alignment. And that belief shapes how much effort they invest. The truth is, many marriages do not fail because people stop loving each other. They fail because people stop choosing each other daily. Love fades when effort fades. Connection weakens when communication stops. Intimacy dies when resentment is left unattended. These are not reasons to leave. They are signals to engage. But engagement requires work, and work requires patience. Divorce being easy removes the pressure to develop patience. It offers an escape hatch instead of a repair kit. And yet, repair is where growth happens. Two people who work through hardship together often emerge stronger, wiser, and more connected than they ever were before. Not because the hardship was good, but because the response to it was intentional. But when we skip that process, we miss the transformation. We must ask ourselves what kind of society we want to build. One where relationships are abandoned when they become challenging, or one where people are equipped to navigate challenge with maturity and grace. This is not about forcing people to stay miserable. It is about asking whether we have made leaving too easy and staying too unsupported. Do we provide couples with tools before things break beyond repair? Do we normalize counseling before crisis? Do we teach conflict resolution as a life skill? Or do we wait until everything is shattered and then say, "It's okay, just walk away"? There is a difference between mercy and avoidance. Mercy acknowledges pain and seeks healing. Avoidance escapes pain without understanding it. Many divorces are acts of mercy. But many are acts of avoidance dressed up as empowerment. And we need the courage to tell the difference. Marriage is not meant to make you happy every moment. It is meant to make you grow. Happiness comes and goes. Growth stays. But growth is uncomfortable. It demands that you confront your ego. It demands that you listen when you want to defend. It demands that you forgive when you want to punish. It demands that you show up when you want to withdraw. If divorce is always easy, growth becomes optional. And when growth is optional, many will choose comfort instead. So is divorce too easy to obtain? Perhaps the better question is this. Have we made commitment too easy to abandon? Have we failed to teach people that love is not sustained by feelings alone, but by daily, sometimes unglamorous choices? Have we replaced endurance with entitlement? Because marriage was never meant to be a constant state of fulfillment. It was meant to be a shared journey through change. Two imperfect people choosing to build something greater than themselves. That requires sacrifice. And sacrifice does not thrive in a culture that prioritizes personal satisfaction above all else. This does not mean staying in pain indefinitely. It means exhausting avenues of repair before surrendering. It means slowing down decisions that alter lives forever. It means pausing long enough to ask, have we truly done the work, or are we just tired? Because tired can be treated. Disconnected can be repaired. Misunderstood can be clarified. But abandonment leaves scars that effort might have healed. We must also acknowledge something difficult. Divorce does not end pain. It changes its shape. It introduces new grief, new challenges, new adjustments. Sometimes those are worth it. Sometimes they are necessary. But they should not be entered lightly. When divorce is easy to obtain, it risks being chosen impulsively, during seasons of intense emotion rather than clarity. Marriage deserves more respect than that. It deserves deliberation. It deserves patience. It deserves support systems that encourage repair before rupture. A society that wants strong families must invest in strong marriages. And that means making staying as supported as leaving. Not shaming divorce, but not glamorizing it either. Holding space for those who had no choice, while challenging those who gave up too soon. Because vows mean something only if we treat them as sacred. Sacred not in a religious sense necessarily, but in a human one. A promise made in full awareness that there will be days you don't feel like keeping it. And choosing to keep it anyway. Divorce should exist as a door of safety, not as a revolving door of convenience. When it becomes too easy to obtain, we risk losing the depth that commitment brings. And depth is where the most meaningful relationships are formed. If we want marriages that last, we must slow down both the entrance and the exit. Prepare better. Support deeper. Teach skills. Encourage humility. Because love is not fragile. But commitment is. And it must be protected. So maybe the question is not whether divorce is too easy. Maybe the real question is whether we have made marriage too shallow. And whether we are brave enough to restore its weight. Not through force. Not through shame. But through wisdom, preparation, and a renewed respect for the power of choosing to stay.